What's going on, guys? This is the Edge DFS. This is the Showdown show, Ravens versus Patriots for Sunday Night Football. My name is Tyson Smith, coming to you from Los Angeles. I'm joined by Ellie Hernandez, A-Dubs King 24 from Indiana. How are you, man? How's it going?
Pretty good, dude. It's cold as hell. Being from Arizona, I'm not used to weather that actually chills your fucking bones. But whatever, man. Hey, that's what we have alcohol for, right?
Yeah. What is the temperature right now? Currently, we're recording this at Friday night. What's the temperature?
Like 40 degrees. I mean, it's not even that crazy, but like you can feel that it's getting colder. I don't know how to explain.
Dude,
it, but
bro,
it fucking sucks.
I'm in LA. It was 90 degrees 2 weeks ago, and now it's the high is like 60. And it's like 40 degrees out. I don't understand it. There's no seasons here anymore. It's hot or cold. Those are the seasons. Anyways,
or on fire.
Yeah, that too. All right. Anyways, thanks for joining us, guys. If you throw us a like real quick, smash the shit out of that like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications. We're gonna start going live as much as possible here. We're doing a main slate show tomorrow for Saturday, so hang out with us, join us, comment. Let's talk about football. Anyways, we're talking Ravens versus Patriots. Let's look at the Vegas lines and some of the information when it comes to this actual matchup from a football aspect. So Baltimore is in New England. The weather is bad. When I say bad, I mean it's going to rain, and there is possible thunderstorms involved. So I know this is football. I know it's not that big of a deal when it comes to weather, but just, it can change up the game plan slightly. You can rely more on running, less passing, especially with two quarterbacks that can't pass the ball to save their lives. Maybe it's going to be more heavily running when it comes to the game plan. Baltimore 6-2. New England, they won on the last slate, which was that Monday night? Or was that Sunday night? That was Monday night, right?
Yeah,
that was Monday night game.
Game of the season, right? Jets, fucking Patriots.
Oh my God, yeah, that actually wasn't a terrible game, actually, but
it was more competitive than Bucks. And where the fuck they played?
Exactly,
Saints.
Yeah, exactly. So New England's 3-5. The dynasty is over. Cam Newton, came out looking like Joe Montana last week with Jacoby Myers' law firm. Jacoby Myers broke the slate, but we were expecting more of a run-heavy attack for them, and they came out passing the ball. It was really interesting. So this time, they're going up against Baltimore. Baltimore is a heavy favorite, minus 324 odds, which is around a 76% win probability. The total is 43.5, which is insanely low for this season, especially, and a -7 spread. So you have a road team favored by 7 points. What are your thoughts on this game, generally speaking? Baltimore can't, they've been struggling to pass the ball. Lamar Jackson does not look great this season. He's a good quarterback still, but he's not in MVP form. He can't really pass the ball. And you have New England that is heavily injured. They've got Cam Newton, can't really pass the ball either at this point in his career. How do you approach this from a football aspect? What's the game plan here? Is it just run the ball?
Well, it should be, but I think that's one of the most frustrating parts about Baltimore. They put themselves in great position running the football, and then they decide to pass in the most dumbass situations too that they possibly could. I think last year's, I don't know if it was the AFC Championship game or it was one of the playoff games against the Titans. No, it wasn't the championship game. Maybe it was. It doesn't matter. But that game was lost because Mark Andrews tipped the ball and ended up leading to an interception. And that seems to be the story of the Baltimore Ravens. That's becoming more of their team identity than running the football. So if I think tomorrow should be a heavy running game. We expected that the other night with the Jets and the Pats in the first place. But tomorrow, both teams, that's all they do is run the football. So that Baltimore's going to try and rush the football all night, and I think the weather's just going to help push it that way. And given the line, given where the spread is currently, I mean, if I were John Harbaugh, I wouldn't do anything but run the football. But again, we know how that plays out, so it'll be an interesting game to watch. And again, the Pats, the Pats are they're the Patriots, right? They have Bill Belichick. They have one of the historically great secondary coaches in the history of the NFL, and Bill Belichick. Him and Nick Saban, right? Both two guys who are incredible at coaching defensive backs. I mean, after Monday night's performance, I fully anticipate them to come in a little bit more with an edge and a chip on their shoulder, right? The McCourty brothers, they're gonna do all right, and I think this is going to be a very heavy running game. This might be the only slate in the world that I'll ever have only running backs for offensive players.
Yeah,
that's an exaggeration, but yeah, man, it's going to be a fun game, I think. But it'll be interesting.
Lately with these showdown slates, whatever we think is going to happen, the exact opposite usually happens. When it comes to this game, I just don't see how defenses and running backs aren't heavily in play. When it comes to playing tournaments, you always want to be different, but sometimes being too different is just stupid. In this case, I really like relying on the running backs, relying on the defenses, possibly the kickers, depending on how bad the weather is, how bad the wind is. So keep an eye on that as we get closer to Sunday night. If the weather dies down, even if it's raining, but the wind is really the issue when it comes to the kickers, obviously. I think all those are in play. You have two really expensive quarterbacks. I don't think that you could fade, in my opinion, that you could fade Cam Newton or Lamar, especially Lamar. That's just the way it is. I think you got to have Lamar. I think he's going to be 95% on, just like he is on every showdown slate, and just like Cam Newton was the other day. I think you could find some value when it comes to wide receivers, maybe some tight ends. And there's one guy at $200. Stick around. There's one guy at $200 that really sticks out to me. I think you can have in a lot of your lineups. I think he might be relatively high owned, but we'll just have to wait on ownership. So, anyways,
I already second that choice. I know who it is. We didn't talk before the show. Like, there's no reason that he should be $200. I don't care what's going on.
No reason at all.
Yeah.
So stick around with us. And by the way, we're going to be building a lineup together like we've been doing the past few weeks. Last showdown slate, my captain choice was Naheem Hines. I don't know why you guys didn't watch the show. You could have won some money. Anyway, stick around with us to the end. We're going to build a lineup, and let's talk about injuries. So for the Ravens, the only really notable injury is Mark Ingram. He's questionable. He's been out since, I believe, week 5 or possibly week 6. He's been out for a minute. So keep an eye on Mark Ingram. We'll talk about when it comes to running backs how that's going to affect us. I don't know that it's going to affect us a whole lot. He's sort of a over-the-hill kind of guy. 2 seasons ago, he was the man. And now it's, he's not quite the same guy he was in the past. When it comes to New England, once again, Belichick, if you stub your toe, you're going to be questionable, basically. He doesn't give a shit. He's going to put you as questionable. So it's hard to decipher really who is questionable and who isn't. When it comes to Sony Michel, he's still on IR, and he can be activated up to maybe 1 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. I don't know the exact timing on that, but he can be activated on the day. So keep an eye on Sony Michel when it comes to coming off the IR. We'll talk about how that may or may not affect things for us when it comes to actually to the running back position. Damian Harris, once again, he got injured at the end of that game. He was just catching his stride. He had a long, nice run. Ellie and I both had a shitload of Damian Harris, so we were kind of upset about that. He has a chest injury, I think, whatever that means. So keep an eye out for these guys. Both play the same position when it comes in this offense. They're both the first and second down backs. They're both going to get some of those goal line carries as long as they're not being vultured by Cam Newton. So keep an eye on these guys. This is some serious news when it comes to actually figuring out who's going to get the ball. It's already a very muddy situation when it comes to New England's running backs. This makes it even worse.
So
Nikhil.
just,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
do want to add something to this real quick. So we obviously don't have enough room on the slide to list all of the Patriots injuries. They literally have 17 players that are questionable for Sunday.
Yeah.
Now, granted, most of those are on the defensive side. Well, I don't even know if most is the right word. They're about half of them are on the defensive side of the ball. That's something to keep in mind in when you're building lineups. If Stephon Gilmore doesn't play, you know that might be something that we give Jacoby Myers a boost to. So keep an eye on the 76 questionable
You
players
mean
for the Patriots.
Hollywood Brown, right? You talking about Hollywood Brown?
Yeah,
You said Jacoby
my
Myers.
bad.
No, it's all good.
Obviously they're not. Yeah, but yeah, no, same thing, right?
Yeah, it's a good
You're
point.
going
It's
to
a good
be
point.
opening up some different options um, by keeping an eye on the injury report. But anyways,
Absolutely.
back to you, buddy.
All right, so we've got N'Keal Harry questionable. If he does come back, that makes things interesting because Jacoby Myers had a pretty good game, and he was the number one guy, and he actually broke the slate. He was relatively popular simply because he was the only option. But I think, Demir Bird had a relatively decent game. It was nothing to write home about, but he had 9 targets, 5 receptions for 65 yards, 11.5 DK fantasy points. So, you've got Jacoby Myers and Demir Bird, who are both good options. But if you throw N'Keal Harry in there, it sort of makes things a little bit more difficult to figure out who Cam is going to throw to. Ryan Izzo. Go ahead, bro. What do you got? Go ahead. You got something?
No, I was just gonna say, not for me, man. If N'Keal Harry plays, he's 3,200. Like,
Yeah.
he becomes one of the most valuable players on the slate, in my opinion. Jacoby Myers is not going to get, what is it, 12 targets or
Yeah.
14 targets?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to happen again. Not if N'Keal Harry's back in the game. I see him dropping back down to 10 or 8. Now, he could have a ceiling game, that's for sure,
Yeah.
because even his ceiling game on Monday didn't have a touchdown. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you throw a touchdown in there, it's completely different. But, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great point, though. Keep an eye on N'Keal Harry because, I mean, he's a very physical receiver. But we'll get into that more as we talk about wide receivers. But I'm getting ahead of ourselves because of the injury report.
Well, hey,
but,
let's.
yeah, no, man, I like N'Keal Harry.
So the tight end situation with the Patriots is just a fucking joke. I mean, I don't even know how to describe this. So right now, Ryan Izzo is questionable. You have Dalton King and Devin Asiasi. Who? Those two guys are out, and Ryan Izzo is questionable. So let's just say, for example, if Ryan Izzo is out, you have quite possibly have Dylan Cantrell as your starting tight end, along with Jordan Thomas, who was released by the Arizona Cardinals and brought on, I think, a couple days ago. So you're basically, you have a bunch of scrubs playing tight end. No offense to those guys, but they're just not fantasy options in my opinion. If anything, Jordan Thomas at $200 has a potential, like a red zone touchdown potential. I wouldn't get more than one lineup with him, but it's worth a shot because we just don't know what this team is going to do. So keep an eye on the tight end position and the running back position for the Patriots because when news comes out, it's going to change the whole dynamic of how you build lineups. All right, so let's move on to ownership. Obviously, we're recording this a couple days early. This is Friday night. We wanted to get this information out as quick as possible so you guys can watch this on Friday night, Saturday, Sunday morning. We don't have actual ownership projections from the popular sites that'll provide that. But just, we've done this for a minute. I think we've been pretty close when it comes to guessing at ownership projections. I mean, Lamar Jackson will be the highest owned. That's you don't have to be a genius to know that. I'm sure that Cam Newton will be the second highest owned. How do you figure out the muddy waters when it comes to the rest of the ownership for both of these teams? Who do you think will be like top 5 owned here?
Yeah, I think you're right on. I think Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton are going to be the top 2 captains. And Lamar Jackson should be the top captain probably by a 15% clip. It's not going to be close.
Yeah.
And then Cam Newton will probably be second. And I can see him coming in close to 15%. Just it's not crazy high, but it's high enough just because there's not enough on this slate to really jam into that captain spot. I feel like that's uh, risky, or that's low owned enough and high upside enough to be playing. So I really don't see much other than Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton at captain. I can see some Jacoby Myers in at captain after his game on Monday. I can see some people trying to chase those points and that performance, and that's not bad. You might get a little bit of J.K. Dobbins and Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
But overall, I think that the ownership's going to be tied up mostly in Lamar, Cam, Hollywood Brown, Jacoby Myers, and then honestly probably J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, I
but
think
he's
J.K. Dobbins,
interesting.
yeah.
He's interesting depending on his price tag and those ownership projections. I will be looking at him specifically, simply because he is a little bit expensive, and I don't. I don't know if you're going to pay that for a running back that's splitting touches with Gus Edwards and Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson, of course. So, keep an eye on ownership updates, because that's going to be really important where J.K. Dobbins actually is projected at. I think he might be the key to the slate, to be honest with you. So we'll have to keep an eye on him where he lands.
Just by crunching out, I usually crunch out 200-300 lineups with different captains just to kind of get a feel for how the builds go. And to me, Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton, they have the highest projected totals when it comes to putting him in the captain and finding value elsewhere. So what it seems like to me is Justin Tucker is going to end up being overowned. Well, it depends on what your definition of overowned is. He has a higher ceiling. This guy is a great kicker. He can kick a 60-yard field goal, no problem. In a weather game like this, though, I'm more likely to fade a guy like Justin Tucker if he's 45% owned, because I think he can get up there. He's at 3,800. I think the ownership is going to lean towards the kickers and maybe the defense here. So if that's the case, I have no problem playing defense and running backs in this game. But with kickers, it's just so random that I'm more likely to fade the kicker and just hope that these guys have an off game. So let's just move on to our breakdown. So we're going to talk about position by position. We're going to go over this. We're able to really zoom in and see exactly. On a showdown slate, you gotta go deep. You gotta look at third string tight ends. You gotta look at fifth string wide receivers. You gotta go deep. So talking this out in real time really helps. And if you're listening to this, just listen to what we're saying. Form your own opinions. Figure out what you like, what you don't like. And to me, talking this out position by position helps me build my thought process on how I'm going to build my roster construction. So anyways, I'll stop talking and we'll get into Lamar and Cam at captain. All right. So are you going to have 100% of these guys in all your lineups, whether they're at captain or flex?
Yeah. I might get risky and try and fade Lamar a little bit, just because he's been struggling. It could be just easy leverage on the field. And when I say that, I mean like one or two lineups. It might be okay to fade him. You're gonna be able to capture all the highest scoring points on the board by fading him. So I don't think you have to get too risky with it. But I mean, he's likely going to be the highest scoring player on the slate because of the rushing upside. So I don't think you can fit you. I think you have to have him in 100% of your lineups. Same with Cam Newton. Who knows what the hell the Patriots are going to do? But apparently Cam Newton's going to get all the rushing touchdowns, which he's done all year. So I don't know why I expected anything else. So yeah, I'm going to have a lot of both of them in my lineups. I don't think they're going to be passing the ball, but we saw on Monday night for the Pats, when they're not getting Cam involved in the rushing attack, they're not as effective. So I'm gonna have a lot of exposure to both these guys.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to. I mean, if anything, I would lean towards fading Cam slightly, like maybe half the field on Cam, and you could get immediately different. But there's enough salary value out there that you could just plug both of them in the flex, get different in the captain, and get different in the other couple spots. That's just my opinion on it. I know that like fading one of these quarterbacks automatically makes you different, but sometimes being different is just being stupid. And in this case, I think if you have Cam and Lamar in the flex and mix it up at captain, that's just a good base. That's guaranteeing you that those guys are probably going to be in the optimal lineup. So let's look at Lamar from a passing aspect. I'm sharing my screen here. We've got some of his box scores fantasy wise. Let's separate week 1 against Cleveland, where they won 38-6. He had a great passing game. I think the previous season against the Dolphins, he came out and absolutely crushed in the first game. For whatever reason, they passed the ball great in the beginning of the year, and it sort of evens out from there. But when you look at Lamar passing wise, he's not really getting more than 30 attempts. He's usually right in the mid-20s when it comes to attempts, and he hasn't had more than 20 completions the whole season besides that week 1 game. When it comes to passing touchdowns, he's getting some decent passing touchdowns. 2, 1, and pretty much the whole season he hasn't gone over 3 since week 1. So you're looking for probably 2 passing touchdowns, maybe 1, and then an interception or so. It's nothing to write home about. He hasn't been very impressive in the pass game, and they've been talking about that in the local media, and you throw on First Take after on Sunday, and they're talking about can Lamar throw the ball. This is the same issue we've talked about last season. It's never going to end with him. I think his whole career they're going to be talking about this, and usually he comes out and he says, "Fuck you guys, I can throw the ball." Like pretty good for a running back, right? Like that's his mantra. I think once people start to talk about it, and it really motivates him and motivates the rest of the team to come out and actually prove that these guys can throw the ball. So to me, Lamar Jackson might have a better than average passing game. That's just from a narrative aspect. I know that you're not supposed to look at that when you're playing fantasy, but to me, I feel like he's going to come out and have more attempts and more passing touchdowns this game. And everyone is going to absolutely bank on the fact that the running backs are going to get the bulk of the carry or bulk of the offense. But I think in a game like this, you have to, if you want to get different slightly, maybe you can go a little bit heavier on the wide receivers, the tight ends in this game, and expect maybe 3 touchdown passes from Lamar. How do you approach Lamar this week? Do you think it's going to just be all him running again, or do you think he's going to get any more extra attempts?
Honestly, I hope he doesn't get extra attempts. He's more efficient when he sits around 20, 25 attempts. That means they're running the ball pretty well. Their defense has been fairly efficient, and he's probably going to throw for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns when that happens. When he starts getting over 30 attempts, his efficiency starts to drop, other than the Titans playoff game. And also, I'll look into that bold claim right now, or a little bit further, right? Because I'm not 100% certain on that. But, I mean, efficiency is generally tied to the total pass attempts here. Yeah. Look at the week that he had 37 pass attempts with 19 completions. So anytime he gets into that range, 28 completions, 28 attempts, he's at 15. But sitting at 25, he has 20 completions. 24 attempts, 18 completions. So I think 20 to 25 is kind of that sweet spot where he's being highly efficient. And again, that means you're probably getting his rushing upside because he's maintaining drives. So I don't know, man. I don't think it matters. One direction or another. If you think that Lamar Jackson is going to have some more passing attempts or is going to be more efficient with his passing attempts, I think it's wise to throw in a wide receiver. But honestly, there's little game script that is going to persuade me to not have Lamar Jackson in. You can tell me he's going to go out and rush or he's going to fumble the ball twice, but I still assume he's going to have 15 carries for 80 yards and probably a touchdown. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't really know. I think I think you're dead on, right? There are slates where you can start fading some of these guys to get different. Like Derrick Henry last night was a chalk as hell captain, and just chalky player in general. And he wasn't necessarily needed. I mean, most people had Ryan. I think the winning lineup had Ryan Tannehill and Blankenship over Derrick Henry and Blankenship, for example. So this isn't the slate to fade him. I think you just close your eyes and put him in your fucking lineups.
Absolutely. I think the question is putting him at captain. Me personally, like, look, I really highly encourage you guys to play the way you want to play. If you want to put Lamar Jackson at captain and put a bunch of 10% owned guys in your flex, go for it. Like, in fact, it's probably smarter than playing 5% owned guy in the captain. But for me personally, my mind doesn't work that way. I'd rather fade him at the captain. I'd rather fade Cam at captain, in my opinion. Find other ways to get different. Let's move on to Cam Newton real quick. I really think it's important to spend the time talking about these guys because these two guys are the most important players on the slate. If you get this right, you can win some money here. So let's talk about Cam. Last week, 27 for 35, 274 yards, no passing touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks. Had a pretty efficient game. He threw 77% completion percentage. His quarterback rating was hovering around 100. He did run 10 times and had 2 touchdowns. So if we think that can happen again this week, you got to have him. He's going to be in the optimal. If we think both of these guys can score right around 20 to 25 points as their floor, obviously you got to have him in. I don't see a game script where, like, obviously the Ravens have a great defense. They can absolutely destroy the Patriots, but I still feel that any yardage, any rushing touchdowns is going to come through Cam Newton. So if I wanted to get slightly different, I would just go a little bit lower on Lamar and have more Cam, in my opinion, because I think that having Lamar and Cam in the same lineup is going to be very popular. So if you just did Cam and maybe loaded up on some other rushing options and maybe some other receiving options from the Ravens, maybe that's a way to get different. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I think Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson, you got to play both of these guys in majority of your lineups. I don't think there's any debate there. Do you have any other anything else to add to that?
I mean, not really. I like your point. I think the easiest way to get different is just to not put him in at your captain.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're going to be the chalkiest captain. And, I mean, obviously, you guys will find out that might be a little bit contrarian to some of the points that we're going to make later in the show. But, I mean, we're still doing research on this. And an injury can shift this whole slate a different way, right? So,
well, look, I think Cam is going to be – he's going to be relatively high owned in the captain, but I don't think it's not like it's going to be like the other night. I think everyone's just going to plug Lamar in and then try to figure it out from there. I think you can get a little different with Cam at the captain, I think, but we'll talk about that in a second. Let's transition into running backs. Let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens running backs here. So we've got J.K. Dobbins, who...
This is going to be the most difficult part of the night. Like, at least with Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton, you can just guess or you can play them all. Like, there's 46 running backs that are each going to get 8 carries.
Exactly. So, by the way, guys, we have everything time-stamped. If you guys want to jump ahead, look at different positions, jump right to the lineup build, whatever it is you guys want to do, scrolling on YouTube, you can find that in the podcast. We have all the chapters marked. Scroll to where you need to go. You don't have to stick with us the whole time. We would love it if you did. But scroll around, figure out what you need. Let's go to running back. J.K. Dobbins, 8,400. Seems a little overpriced to me. I guess he's the starter. I don't. And we're assuming that Mark Ingram is out for this, right? We'll talk about Mark Ingram in a minute and what to do if he's in. But we're talking about these guys as if Mark Ingram is out. J.K. Dobbins is the guy. He's getting most of the targets out of the backfield, but in a game script where the Patriots where the Ravens are winning, the guy that's gonna get the workload is Gus Edwards. This guy is the closer.
Yeah.
This guy is the closer. He's a big dude. Do you got a train? Is that a train going on back there?
It's 100% a train.
Damn,
It is
that's crazy.
absolutely a train.
Holy shit.
Yeah, dude. It's like half a mile away too.
Damn, that's
You
crazy.
can fucking hear that.
Remember when we lived in Tempe, Arizona, and we lived literally on the train tracks? I
Yeah.
couldn't go to bed without that train. Anyway. All right. Anyways,
Yeah,
sorry about that.
Yeah.
So Gus Edwards is the closer. J.K. Dobbins is your scat back receiver. Even though I would consider J.K. the starter. Right? Is he on the depth chart number 1? I'm assuming. But
I think so. Yeah.
He's going to get the receptions, and on DraftKings, it's a Naheem Hines situation. If they get down there and he catches a 7-yard reception for a touchdown, that can change a lot in a 42 total. So J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, those are really the only guys I'm going to consider. And if Mark Ingram is in, I'm assuming that if Mark Ingram is ruled in 90 minutes before that he's active, his ownership is going to be less than 10%. How do you handle these 3 guys? And are you looking at Justice Hill or Patrick Ricard at all?
Well, I'll answer your last question first. No. That's really all I have for those 2 guys. As far as the running back situation in general, I'm really looking at that injury, right? If Mark Ingram plays, that may spread the carries out and the workload out a little bit too much for me to want to really stick to any one of these running backs. If he doesn't play, I honestly don't give a shit about anybody else other than Gus Edwards. Yeah. 2,400 seems incredibly low for the amount of volume that he's getting. He is their goal line back. So if somebody is going to vulture, he's going to be the vulture, and he's a clear vulture. It's not even like, hey, I wonder who's going to get the goal line rushes. If they get in within the 5-yard line, he's probably going to get the goal line rushes.
Yeah.
Especially if Mark Ingram is out. So at 2,400, I think he's an incredible play. And I think, I'm going to have a decent amount of exposure to him. In fact, I don't think, this might be the reverse Naheem Hines. Naheem Hines tore it up because he had receptions and got involved in the passing game as well as rushing the ball well.
Yeah.
I don't think Gus Edwards is going to need to do that, and he'll be able to run the ball against a pretty porous defense. So, I like him a lot. As far as J.K. Dobbins, again, I'll have a decent amount of exposure to him. I'm not going to get too crazy with it, but that price tag is kind of high for me. In fact, can you change my fate of the night slide? He might, he might actually be the fate of the night because, if you just look at his history, right, he doesn't have a very good output given his, you have the one game against Pittsburgh where you had 113 yards and you had 13 fantasy points, man.
Yeah.
What the fuck? What did you, how did you go for over 100 and have a shitty fantasy performance? So he's not scoring touchdowns. He did in week 1 and he scored 2 touchdowns and got 22 yards. So still, that's 14 points. You're not paying off a price tag like that without a Naheem kind of night performance. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think you have to play a little bit just because he does have some high upside, but again, I think Gus Edwards is the play here because if each guy gets a solid 6 points, Gus Edwards is more valuable at 2,400. So that's where I'm at for these guys.
So let's look at J.K. Dobbins. Let's look at his little fantasy box score here. The last 2 weeks, he's had 12 attempts. He's had 15 attempts. I think he's trending up towards getting the ball more from a handoff aspect. Maybe not as. Typically, he was getting more targets earlier in the year, and lately he's been getting less targets. So maybe he's becoming that number 1 guy. They're relying on him more to hand the ball off to him on first and second down. But he's sort of all over the place. And if you look at his salary, it's also all over the place. The highest he's been is 7,800. Now DraftKings has priced him up to 8,400. DraftKings is tempting us to just uncheck him. at this point. But it's hard because this is a kind of game where he can excel. It's hard to figure out the Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins situation, and in the NFL now in general, it's hard to figure out who's going to get the ball, minus a couple teams like the Derrick Henrys of the world and things like that. So when it comes to J.K. Dobbins, I'm more likely to fade him as well, and especially if we're going 4-2, 5-1 stacks with Baltimore, because we know they're going to win this game. At least I think they're going to win it, and so does everybody else. So does Vegas. The key here is, can J.K. Dobbins get a couple first half touchdowns before they rely more on Gus Edwards with the lead? I think that's the only question we need to ask ourselves. Can he score? Can he get those touchdowns? Can he get those rushing yards and receptions before the game gets out of hand and they put him on the sideline? So let's look at Gus Edwards a little bit here. So I'm going to leave his box score up on the screen, but I'm also going to talk about some of his snaps and his target shares and rush attempts for the past few weeks. So obviously J.K. Dobbins is getting the lion's share of snaps at running back, and as well at when it comes to routes run. J.K. Dobbins had 18 routes run last week. The week before, he had 21 routes run. That's not a shocking stat. When it comes to stats, J.K. Dobbins had 59% of the snaps last week, and he had 72% of the snaps the week before, compared to Gus Edwards, who's hovering around 30 to 40% of the snaps. But what really matters is the rush attempts. Gus Edwards is getting, on average for the season, getting 9.4 rush attempts per game. J.K. Dobbins getting 6.5. Obviously, with Mark Ingram out, that is a little bit different. But just looking at the last few weeks, Gus Edwards has generally gotten right around the same amount of rush attempts as J.K. Dobbins. So to me, I'm going to go with a guy like Gus Edwards, who is at a huge discount. You're talking, 6,000 difference between the two? To me, that's just it's just obvious to me to go with Gus Edwards, and maybe the field will feel the same way. If the field is high on Gus Edwards too, I just don't think they will be, because he's not really a sexy play, in my opinion. The guy who gets 10 carries, 45 yards, and maybe doesn't get that touchdown is not a sexy play. When it comes to a game like this, he could totally get 2 touchdowns in this game, and I actually expect him to get at least 1 touchdown. I'm gonna have to look at the props on that, the odds on that, as far as anytime touchdown score for him, because I think it's a good opportunity to bet some money on him to score a touchdown.
And so here's one thing I want to add to this too. So one of my concerns was that Mark Ingram coming back, if he is healthy, would spread out the share a little bit too much to make Gus Edwards viable. But looking at this, he's only missed the last 2 weeks. Mark Ingram's only missed the last 2 weeks, so that means Gus Edwards was still getting volume while Mark Ingram was moderately healthy.
He's missed 3 weeks, but pretty much, yeah, same thing.
Okay. You sure they didn't have a bye in there? And that was what.
Well, you know what? Maybe you're right. Yeah, maybe it was. Oh, yes, you're right. Week 7 was their bye, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because my brother came over. He's a Ravens fan, so we didn't have a game to watch.
We should get him on the fucking show. Maybe he'll know what the hell to do with this fucking team.
No, he's a fan of them. He doesn't know shit about them. He just yells at them when they're not running the football. That's the key to the Baltimore Ravens just entire fucking team is. Are you going to run the football? Yeah, you're probably going to win the game.
Yeah.
Are you passing in dumbass downs in situations? Yes. Then you're going to lose the game. So that's that. But no, man, you're right on with Gus Edwards, dude. I obviously I went on a whole spiel about him, but I mean, dude, even with Ingram on the field, he's getting good opportunities. He's getting red zone carries. He's getting carries, and I think that's at 2,400. I mean, it doesn't fucking make sense to play Dobbins.
I totally agree. So real quick, 10 seconds or less. If Ingram plays, how do you handle that situation?
I'm still playing Edwards, man. He's just too cheap. He's too cheap and has too much upside.
Ingram's at $7K. There's no reason to play Ingram, even if he gets half the carries, there's no reason to play him. I think he's a middle of the field kind of guy.
I'll play him over Dobbins if he's healthy.
Yeah, actually, I agree with that. Okay, so let's move on to another shit fest. God, this is gonna suck. We'll try to keep this under 10 minutes for this. Actually, let's keep this under 5 minutes. Let's just assume that we don't know what the hell we're talking about and just quickly get through this. When it comes to New England,
this is easy.
Well, we have injuries, so Damian Harris. If Damian Harris plays, can we? I don't think we can play Damian Harris at all this week. He's at 8,800. He's a first and second down, sort of hand the ball off in the middle of the field, grind it out guy. I don't see him breaking a long one. I don't even see him scoring a touchdown on the goal line against the Ravens. I think if anything, they're gonna use Cam to score those goal line touchdowns, or they're gonna pass it out of the backfield to Burkhead or James White. And if you have Sony Michel coming back, I don't know. Like if Sony Michel is active and Damian Harris is active, me personally, I'm just gonna uncheck both of them because I don't know who's gonna get the ball.
I don't know about Michel, man. He's 1,200. So like if he's not gonna be on a snap count, then
1,800. Yeah,
he's
exactly. Yeah, 18. Well, but listen, but here's the thing. We don't know anything about this team when it comes. Belichick just does whatever the fuck he wants. If Sony, Sony Michel can look at him wrong in the morning on Sunday and he's done. They'll cut him. Like
right.
Legitimately, like we don't know. Obviously, Damian Harris is a young guy. They probably want to see what he's got. They want to give him the ball more. Sony Michel's also young though. Was he a rookie like 2 years ago? Like
yeah.
Who's getting the ball? Like Damian Harris and Sony Michel, they're the same role, right? But even when Sony Michel was the guy, you couldn't play him in fantasy at a certain point because he got 10 carries for 42 yards and no touchdowns. It's not even worth it.
No receptions.
Receptions.
So, and that's why we know about this is because, we play Draftkings, so we want James White. And, the spoiler alert, who we're going to come down to probably at the running back position here. But James White has the potential to get the PPR. Yeah. And, that's one of the highest correlations between fantasy output on Draftkings. And it's no surprise there, right? If you're catching the ball, you're probably going to get more points.
The interesting thing is, so look, to me, Damian Harris and Sony Michel, let's just assume they're both active. I don't really want to touch any of them. I'm just gonna like limit them to like 1% in my optimizer, maybe get a couple, maybe 5%. Like I'll put them at 5%, see what happens. But I'm not gonna play either of these guys. Look, if Damian Harris comes in at fucking 10% owned, then okay, then maybe we have to talk about maybe getting a couple more, maybe getting 4 lineups with him at a 20. But I just don't like it. I think it's strictly a tournament play. Obviously, we're basing all of our opinions off of tournament, and from there, I wouldn't touch either of these guys. Now, when it comes to Burkhead versus White, that's a whole other situation. Who knows? Fucking flip a coin. And last week Burkhead just happened to be in. I feel like they're assigned a drive. I don't know if they flip a coin on the sideline. I don't know if they're playing dice over by the fucking on the sideline. I don't know what's happening to determine who actually gets in the game, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, Rex, get on the field. It's your drive. All right, James White, get on the field. It's your drive. And whether or not they score or whether or not they're targeted, it all is just luck. So to me, I'm not going to go too heavy on either of these guys. We saw it last week. Rex Burkhead had the better game. It's almost like the Lockett versus DK Metcalf conundrum. Who's going to have the better game? They can't both have a good game, So
right.
I feel like you could either take a stand on one guy heavy, and just if they don't have a great game, just move on, or you spread it out between both of these guys. You uncheck Damian Harris, you uncheck Sony Michel, and you spread it out equally between Burkhead and White. I'm more likely to go with White. He's projected better. He has more experience. This guy's a Super Bowl hero for this team. I think he's going to get the ball more often, but you never know. I don't know.
I'm not paying $6,800 for Danny Whitehead. So that's my argument in this whole discussion. Danny Whitehead. My bad. Rex Burkhead, Danny Amendola,
Danny Whitehead.
Wes Welker. Yeah, whatever, man. They're all.
Well, at least you didn't call him James Whitehead like I did last week.
Yeah, Right. I mean, well, dude, they're literally all the same guy. But anyways, yeah, I'm not gonna pay for Rex Burkhead. He has 4 touchdowns this season. 3 of them came on one slate, one showdown
Yeah.
slate, and one of them came on Monday night. So I mean, unless you think it's a showdown narrative where he's just playing himself at MVP on showdown nights like that. I mean, sure, go for it, but I'm not paying 6,800 for him.
Look,
I'm with you. I think James White's great. He has the upside, but I mean, dude, fuck their running backs. I don't give a shit about
dude,
them.
to sum this up, the Patriots, I think we all can agree the Patriots are going to be losing this game. I don't see a path for them to actually be winning at any point in the second half. So Damian Harris, Sony Michel, if they play, they're not going to be on the field anyways. They're going to be game scripted out. Rex Burkhead, James White, those guys will be on the field. So there's a lot of value in a guy in these guys getting lots of targets, lots of volume, random draw plays on a 3rd and 40. Like they can get those garbage time points, and at 6,200 and 6,800 respectively, I think they're definitely worth considering. The other guys, uncheck them. Me personally, that's what I'm going to do. Let's move on to wide receivers for the Patriots. This might even be a worse position to talk about. Julian Edelman's out. You got N'Keal Harry coming back. Let's talk about if N'Keal Harry is in. I think he probably will play. If I had to just guess, if N'Keal Harry is in at 3,200, you got to just play a shitload of this guy, don't you?
Yeah. And I mean, I wish you would have phrased that question harder because I feel like I'm not talking enough about it. But I think the answer is just yes. I mean, dude, he's a physical, big receiver. The only downside that you have in playing him is that Jacoby Myers and Cam Newton seem to be clicking a lot lately. Over the past, 3 games, you've seen a 4 target increase week over week for Jacoby Myers. He went 6, 10, 14 the last game. So, and that might even actually be receptions. But no, because he went 14 and 12 on Monday.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's really your only negative. But again, wait for ownership projections. If he's at 70% ownership, then even then, I don't know. He's too cheap. He might just be like a free square. I'd rather have N'Keal Harry with a shitty the offense than have to deal with whoever their kicker is, right?
Yeah.
He's $600 cheaper than Justin Tucker. So
Yeah.
I like N'Keal Harry. I like him a lot. He has high upside, and he's projected for about the same as a kicker. So I don't know, man. I like him.
So we're looking at Jacoby Myers. Obviously, you're right. Cam Newton and him have been clicking a little bit more. I just think against a really good defense like the Ravens, they're gonna have to pass at a certain point. Now, where to like we've always said, these defenses watch film too. Everyone saw Jacoby Myers go off last week. They're gonna have a plan to not let that happen again. I trust that the Baltimore Ravens can shut down Jacoby Myers better than the Jets can. I highly think that that's possible.
So, one of the things the Ravens were missing this last week was one of their star corners. So let's put it this way: Jimmy Smith, and to anybody who's like a deep fucking football nerd, Jimmy Smith is one of the league's premier, or has been one of the league's better cornerbacks for a while. He's their nickelback, right? He's their 3rd string corner because they have Marcus Peters and they have Marlon Humphreys. Marlon Humphreys is their number 1 guy. He didn't play last week. If he's in, I feel like he is matching up with Jacoby Myers, and I do not think that is a good thing for Jacoby Myers. Marlon Humphrey, he has like 4 forced fumbles this year. He's huge in the run game, and he is a lockdown corner. He is one of the better corners in the league. And so I'm right there with you, man. At that price tag, 9,600, I understand he's getting the volume, but I just don't know if it's worth it when you're playing one of the best corners. And as you guys are probably aware by now, when it comes to Alabama players, I do know a little bit more about them. I've been watching Marlon Humphrey since like 2012, and that's about right. He played for one of the best defenses in the history of college football, was coached by the best coach in the history of college football, Nick Saban, who also happens to be a Belichick understudy at defensive back. And he's gonna have a good game. He's gonna ball out. The secondary, when it's healthy, is gonna absolutely shut down these receivers. These are not good receivers. Jacoby Myers is emerging. He's becoming a good receiver.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be able to break away from Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, and the secondary. But,
I totally agree. I totally agree. I mean, look, Jacoby Myers has potential. Don't get me wrong. And I think him and Cam Newton are clicking. If you've watched Cam Newton pass the ball this year, it's the ugliest throw, follow through you've ever seen. It looks like his shoulder is popping out of his arm every time he throws the ball. He's barely getting it down the field. Looks like Phillip Rivers at this point, but not because that's just the way he throws, but because I think he's hurt, and I think he's trying to figure out a way to get the ball down the field, and it's kind of working. It worked last week, but it was against the fucking Jets. Like, don't look at that and be like, man, what a great game for these guys. They played the Jets. They're 0-8. It doesn't matter.
The Jets were competitive against you, right? Like, let's not even mince words here.
The Jets should have won. They should have won that game.
You're not playing the Jets on Sunday night, right? Like, I think the biggest news here is Matthew Judon is questionable and Calais Campbell is out. So the only thing the Patriots have for them is, they are not going to be running the ball against the biggest run-stopping defensive end in the NFL for the past decade. So, I agree with you. This is. I am hoping that ownership is heavy on the Pats because there's no reason to expect anything from them.
So, bro, all right. So I know we've already done up our Fate of the Night graphic. I'm not going to show that because I have a new I like just talking it out in real time. My Fate of the Night is no longer, well, yes, pretty much. But spoiler alert, we're going to change our Fate of the Night, by the way. So, okay, real quick, let's get to the rest of these wide receivers. You have Isaiah Ford, who was just traded from the Dolphins. Am I right about that? He was just traded from the Dolphins. Not a bad player. Looks like he will play this week. You also have Isaiah Ford is at $1,000, so he's a straight up wild card. We don't know how they're going to use him. We don't know if they're going to use him at all. We have no clue.
I'll play him if Harry's out. That's the only reason.
Yeah, if N'Keal Harry's out, I think you have to look at Isaiah Ford. To me, Damiere Byrd is a guy I have no problem playing. No problem playing at all. Damiere Byrd, former Arizona Cardinal. He's not a bad player. I think in this offense, even with N'Keal Harry in, I think actually Damiere Byrd's a even better play. At that price tag at $4,400, if he got to 11.5 fantasy points like he did last week, with some random dink and dumps here and there, I think he could end up in the optimal. Randomly, if he could get a random slant pattern that in the red zone that takes him into the end zone. I think Damiere Byrd at 4,400 is absolutely playable. What are your thoughts on the Gunner, Owiski, Isaiah Ford, Damiere Byrd, possibly N'Keal Harry?
So
less than a minute.
I already X'd out Ford and Gunner. I like Damiere Byrd. He's 4,400. Again, N'Keal Harry is going to determine a lot of the direction that I go with wide receiver. But Damiere Byrd's in play. That's all I have for those three.
Look, I'm not going to have more than one. Me personally, I'm not going to have more than one Patriots wide receiver in a lineup. And mainly because I'm probably going to have a lot of 4-2 Baltimore stacks. But if I did have any 2-4, or if I had any 4-man Patriots stacks, I'm going to focus on the running backs. I'm going to get Rex Burkhead and James White in the same lineup potentially. I'm not going to assume that last week is the rule. I'm going to just assume that was an anomaly and that things are going to get back to the way they should, where these wide receivers are just not going to catch the ball. At worst, I maybe could do a N'Keal Harry, Damiere Byrd lineup, maybe, but I just would rather get James White or Burkhead. That's just where I'm going with this. But we're going to move on. We're not going to spend too much time talking about this because we just don't know. We just don't know how they're going to handle this. So let's move on to the wide receivers for Baltimore. This is a little bit of an interesting thing to talk about here. Let's look at Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown at 10,000. So my first thought was that he was going to be my fade of the night, and you also, full disclosure, he was your fade of the night as well. And I'm not super heavy on him. I just feel like he has the upside to break one. And looking at the other wide receiver options on this slate, I think he actually has the best chance of being the guy that breaks the slate. But that's the problem with him. He's either hot or cold. You look at his past games, and he had an 18-point game in the first week. Week 5, he had a 19-point game. From there, he was a major disappointment. At $10,000, though, I don't think he's going to be heavily owned. I think he's going to be under-owned because people are looking at the same stats that I'm looking at and go, yo, this guy sucks. And Lamar Jackson probably can't get him the ball. How are you handling Marquise Brown and Willie Snead? And let's talk about DuVernay, man. At $200, this was our minimum salary darling. Devin DuVernay is getting opportunity. He's getting snaps. He's getting targets. I don't see how you can't have a shitload of this guy at $200. And he's a kick returner, and he's a punt returner,
and he's a returner. Yeah. So he has the return upside. I don't even know if there's anything to talk about for Devin DuVernay. At $2 again, projected 4 or 5 points, that's fine. Half the people on the slate are projected for 6 at $4K.
Yeah.
So for me, he has 1, 2, 3, 4. He has just as many games above 5 fantasy points as he does under. And at $200, that's really enough for me. So honestly, the only thing that'll determine how much DuVernay I get is what the ownership projection is there. Because especially if he's sitting in 10%, then you could literally run Lamar Jackson at captain with every lineup you build and not have to get too different. You know what I mean? So I think DuVernay is going to be, however you say his name, is going to be a very interesting play.
Hey,
I'm going to go backwards.
Take over as host for a second. I got somebody knocking at my door. Take over. Talk about wide receivers.
I'm going to go backwards on this. Miles Boykin, I like Miles Boykin. I think he's going to get some opportunities as well. He does have the opportunity to get those end zone targets. That's kind of where Lamar Jackson likes to get him involved in the offense. But he has 1 touchdown on the year. And he only has 1 red zone target, and he's averaging 4, 5, 2. Looking at about 3 targets per game over the course of the season, and it's trending downward. At $1,200 though, it's worth having a decent amount of exposure based on whatever the ownership projections are looking like. So I'll probably have a healthy amount. I'll be above the field at the very least. I'm not going to get too crazy with him again, just because Devin DuVernay is projected for pretty much the same amount at a sixth of the price. That's insane to me. All right, if we look at Willie Snead, I don't know, man. See, the issue with the Baltimore wide receivers is they're kind of all over the place from a pricing perspective, but their targets and their involvement in the actual passing game has never really been too high. Hollywood Brown obviously is going to have the biggest upside, and then Willie Snead is going to have the second biggest upside. But even then, that's just because of the way that they're utilized in the offense. They're going to be asked to kind of split the safety, and they're going to have those opportunities to get the chunk yardage. But at 4 targets, and with as inconsistent as Lamar has been throwing the football, and as inconsistent as the offensive play calling has been, I don't know if I want to pay that much for Willie Snead. And again, you go back to the Patriots side of the ball, you can I mean, you get a $600 discount for Demir Bird, who's, again, projected for more than Willie Snead. And although projections aren't everything, I mean, stuff like this matters when you're trying to play two of the chalkiest guys and the most expensive guys in the slate. So, I mean, you got Demir Bird at 4,400 as opposed to Willie Snead's 5K.
Mm-hmm.
And again, N'Keal Harry at 3,200 versus 5K.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about two guys who are out projecting Willie Snead. And I think, again, I'll have exposure determined based on whatever the field's projected to come in at. But, I expect him to be close to 25-30% tomorrow. So I think he's kind of an easy fade. And then we go to your guy, Hollywood Brown. Yes, you're absolutely right. I am going to have some exposure to him. But those are going to be very targeted in specific game scripts that require him to go off for the Ravens to stay in it or to go ahead or whatever it is, right? That's how I'm going to build those lineups. But at 10K, I am interested to kind of see where the initial ownership projections are at, because he could be a unique captain at that price if he's coming in closer to 20-25%.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing is, we're not just some like super experts that know Naheem Hines is going to get the carries or Tyler Lockett, right?
Yeah.
We look at football and we understand where the ownership's going to go and who has the highest opportunity to go up. And Marquise Brown is clearly their best receiver. We all know that, and he has the ability to take one to the house every time he touches it.
Yeah.
So if he's coming in at 15%, then one of the safest plays you have on the slate is playing this guy more than the field, because I expect him to get targeted. I don't necessarily expect Snead, Boykin, or DuVernay to do it.
Yeah.
But again, Devin pays off the risk being at $200. So kind of a long ass way around it. Really, the guys that I'm going to be looking at are Devin DuVernay, some Marquise Brown, and then I'll throw in Miles Boykin. Willie Snead, not so much. Pretty much getting over 4,400, 4,500 at wide receiver for the Ravens it's iffy. I would only do it based on ownership projections.
So if you look at DuVernay, his snap count and his routes run, he's taken over for Boykin as the third wide receiver. Ever since the bye, week 7, DuVernay, week 8 and week 9, got between 44 to 48% of the snaps. And he ran 18 and 17 routes in those weeks. So he's the number 3 guy over Boykin. In my opinion, Boykin, I know he's 1,200, but I'd rather get DuVernay. You can save $1,000, and he's actually the guy who's getting the opportunity. And he's getting kick returns. Is he a punt returner as well? Or is he a kick returner? He's both.
Yeah, but and dude, like, you have all that upside, and he doesn't fucking cost anything. Like, you can literally get a 0, and I wouldn't give a shit. Like, I honestly wouldn't give a shit.
Look,
because you're still going to get the high upside players.
I don't think his ownership is going to be as high as it should be. This is another one of those mispriced, what was it, Kendrick Bourne or somebody at $200, or who was it a couple weeks ago?
No, it was Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, Kendrick Bourne at $200, and he was the number 1 wide receiver or something crazy like that. It was just it was an oversight from DraftKings.
Oh, and then Richie James. Yeah, I mean, we can use the 49ers as a fucking
pretty much
for this example. Yeah.
But look, DuVernay at 200, he's a number 3 wide receiver. I think this guy should be right around 2,000, in my opinion. 2,400. Me personally, I think he's going to be
1,200.
Even that
is just too cheap. Yeah.
Even that, exactly. But what I'm saying is his average fantasy points per game is like 4.3 or something super low, because he hasn't had that over the past few weeks. He's been tearing it up, but like beginning of the year, he wasn't really utilized in the offense. So if you're hand building on your phone, he's at the very fucking bottom. There's a bunch of other $200 guys right there on the DraftKings app. He's not going to stick out. The other guys are right around 3 or 4, 3 fantasy points per game. He's at 4.3. There's no reason, like a lot of the field, and some of you who are watching this are building on their phone. There's nothing wrong with that. I highly encourage you to use some other devices to build on, but I think most of the field is going to see that, and he's just not going to be utilized like he should. There's no reason why he shouldn't be in to me, I'm probably gonna have him in 50% of my lineups, just right out of the gate. Now, if his ownership is super high, I'm still gonna have him. It's like a free square. It's like this weekend.
It's like the ownership is high. It's just the field confirming my thoughts. You know what I mean? That's all I had to say.
This is a more obvious to me. This is more obvious of a play considering the high priced guys like Cam Newton and Hollywood Brown and Lamar Jackson. I could fit all those guys in the same lineup by plugging him in. This is like a Mike Davis play for this weekend slate for Sunday. Mike Davis is at 4,000 minimum. So it's like, why wouldn't you?
Trending down. Mike Davis is actually trending down because Duke Johnson is, I'm pretty sure, still minimum, and Joe Mixon's probably not going to play. So now you got Giovanni Bernard in there, and catch us on the Saturday or on the main slate show that we do tomorrow because we're absolutely going to be talking about that stuff. Yeah. And this is. Main slates is where you can get really deep into leverage, right? So if Giovanni Bernard just all of a sudden comes to chalk on Sunday, a really good leverage pivot is going to be Tyler Boyd. You're going to be paying the hell up for him, but I mean, you're going to be capturing the points that are going to go to someone if Giovanni Bernard doesn't perform. So, you're double dinging it. And, it's a little preview. We'll get into that tomorrow.
It's a little preview of our live show tomorrow. Join us live. We'll know the time tomorrow. We'll figure out the exact time. But join us live. Subscribe, like the video, hit the notification bell to get that notification when we're going live. Anyways, DuVernay, just play him. Just play him.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, I'll fucking have some DuVernay at captain. Why not? Like, legit.
Yeah, dude.
Why not?
I mean, at this point, dude, my top two captains are obviously Cam and Lamar are my top two captains. I'm not a dumbass. So when I mean this, is like other than those two. It's DuVernay and then for sure Gus Edwards, especially if Mark Ingram is out. He becomes a huge play at the captain spot.
Yeah, Gus Edwards for sure. Again, all right, so let's move on to tight end quickly. Thanks for sticking with us, guys. We're at about an hour and 6 minutes. Thank you so much. We're going to plow through this motherfucker. Tight end for the Baltimore Ravens. You got Mark Andrews and you got Nick Boyle. Go ahead, take over. Tell me about. I know you're a big Mark Andrews guy, typically on main slate, and you love Mark Andrews for season long. Tell me about Mark Andrews.
I like
7,600.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have him. Look, dude, it's going to be one of the two guys if they're throwing the ball all right. It's going to be Mark Andrews or it's going to be Hollywood Brown. I'm going to have limited exposure on Hollywood Brown, so it's going to be Mark Andrews that I'm going to be playing the most. So, I mean, I like him. He's a good guy. He's got I think he has a lot to make up for. I started hating him a little bit after he caused that interception in the AFC Championship game. But, fuck him. That last season, this season, he has a chance to get back on track. So let's see if he can do it. Nick Boyle, again, at 1,400, I think is an interesting play.
Me
he's
too.
Way too cheap. Yeah, he's way too cheap, and he's going to get some targets. So I think there's a lot of value on this slate. I think everything is kind of concentrated in the top position players where we know the ball's going to go to. But as far as the value goes, there's enough out there that it's going to be spread around, not like the Colts type of spread around, but it's going to be kind of tightly spread around enough between some of these other guys that you could capture a touchdown and 4 receptions at 50 yards. Nick Boyle could be that guy. It could be fucking Miles Boykin at 1,200. Could be DuVernay, but I think both these tight ends are in play. I'm not going to have both of them in the lineup. And I know we haven't gotten to them yet, but fuck Ryan Izzo. I don't give a shit about I don't care about the Pats on this slate. So
yeah. Okay, so let's look at Mark Andrews versus Nick Boyle. First of all, spoiler alert, I like Mark Andrews this week a lot. I think at 7,600, he's going to be forgotten about because he's kind of right in that middle range. He's not cheap enough to really get a lot of him. I don't think the optimizers are going to be plugging him in because he just doesn't project very well. He's a touchdown-dependent sort of guy. He's the kind of guy that'll go off. You need him to go off for 2 touchdowns, basically. And the weeks that he's gone off for 2 touchdowns, just look at this. Week 1, 2 touchdowns, I see green. Week 4, 2 touchdowns, more green. The rest red. So, in my opinion, you got to get this guy to get 2 touchdowns. At 7,600, he's going to be forgotten about. and I don't think he's going to project very well. I think he's going to be like one of those necessary guys when you're building. You go, oh shit, I don't have enough Mark Andrews. Oh shit, Mark Andrews scored the first touchdown. Oh man, I have one lineup with Mark Andrews, and you just forget about a guy like this. In my opinion, I think Nick Boyle is actually going to be. I don't think he's going to be more popular, but I think Nick Boyle will be overowned, and Mark Andrews will be underowned just because of his price. If you look at the snap rate for the whole season, Nick Boyle is actually getting more snaps than Mark Andrews. Now that doesn't mean a whole lot. A lot of times they do double tight end, or they're in a running package, goal line, whatever it is. Nick Boyle is going to be in the game more for those situations. But when it comes to actually routes run, if you look at
air yards,
I have the market share of air yards percentages, and actually, and Nick Boyle grades out pretty well. Do you have add more funds up? Addmorefunds.com up?
No, I have RG. I need to have
so do
add more funds up. Yeah, those guys have the best stuff up.
Yeah, we should be pulling them up.
Showing 23.6%. I mean, look,
and
his depth of target is 10 yards. Dude, he's a good play. Like, I might actually like him more than I did a second ago.
I mean, the target share, he's number 2 on the team in target share for the season. We all know that this guy is the, and look, the best way to get Lamar Jackson going is throw it to your tight end, man. Just throw it to your tight end. And look, also another thing is the Patriots are not, I don't think they grade out well against defense-wise against the tight end. If you look at fantasy points allowed from the tight ends on the defense, I think they rank relatively low. Let me see here. I could be wrong about that. We need to do some more research when it comes to defensive matchups against tight ends. But look, it's not like the Cardinals or one of those teams where traditionally speaking you just plug in a tight end. I don't think that it merits to go out and get Mark Andrews because the Patriots are bad against the tight ends. My opinion here is when it comes to the offense, Lamar Jackson targeting Mark Andrews, that's when they've had the most success in the pass game. Target Mark Andrews. Typically speaking, I feel like when Mark Andrews has a good game, Hollywood Brown has a good game too. That's just me. I would not have any problem getting Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown paired up with Lamar Jackson as well in the same lineup. I think and then throw in Duvernay too. Like to me, this week screams a 42-17 Baltimore Patriots win, Baltimore Ravens win. And Lamar Jackson throws for 3 touchdown passes. That's just what it just feels like it could go that way. We're not even going to talk about the tight ends for the Patriots. There's no point at all. Kickers and defense, real quick. I think
both in play.
I think they're all in play. I usually like I say, like typically speaking, I don't like to go over the field on kickers. I try to stay right below or right at the field. If Justin Tucker is, I personally think he'll be around 35 to 40% owned overall. I'll probably try to stick around 30% with him. And, Nick Folk, I don't think he's anything to write home about. They're right around the same price. I'd rather get Justin Tucker. But game script-wise, Nick Folk might be forced to kick a couple 40-yard field goals in this game because they get stalled out in the red zone. When it comes to defense, the Patriots defense is at 3K. I don't hate the Patriots defense, actually. Last year we're talking about the best. Their offense helped them to become a better defense, but the Patriots last year were the best fantasy defense in the NFL, and they were actually absolutely dominating. They were similar to like the Dolphins this year, how they were just getting random like 24, 27, 30-point fantasy outputs. This year it's a little different, especially since they're playing behind a lot and their offense isn't good. But at $3,000, I don't mind getting a little bit of Patriots defense, especially in a low total. And Ravens at 5,400 compared to like the Bucks at 7,200 or whatever. Like, that's a good price for the Ravens defense against a shitty offense. How are you handling this? I mean, hey, think about this. Ravens paired with Duvernay, man. Get that little fucking double dipping on the kickoff return there.
Yeah. Well, I know you can't do this because you would just literally destroy the whole projections game. But you got to start accounting for field position changes for special teams, right? Like taking a punt from your 20 to the opposing team's 40-yard line. Like if the team scores a touchdown on that drive, you should get like 2 bonus points or something for your special teams or defense. Something's got to be done about that. I'm that guy. I'm going to tout that on our show right now. So
yeah.
Sorry, everybody. To the followers we just lost, well, you obviously undervalue defense and special teams. So, but anyways, man, like, dude, the Patriots, they're fine. They're going to get a couple sacks, and Cam Newton, not Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson's going to have the opportunity to fumble the ball. He's going to put himself in precarious situations, and he's going to occasionally try and force a tight pass in there, right? So, again, the Patriots secondary has the opportunity to make some takeaways. And then, again, the Ravens defense, my only concern really is no Calais Campbell, so I think their rush game is a little more open for attack. Then Matthew Judon as well. If he doesn't play, then I think that takes away some value of paying or at the price for 5,400. But again, we're not looking at a dumbass 7,200 salary tag like we had.
Yeah,
I don't even know what night it was.
It was a couple nights in a row.
Monday
We had
night.
we had some high price defenses for sure.
Well, yeah, because the Jets keep fucking playing in prime time.
Yeah.
So the defenses are costing more than Lamar Jackson does a captain. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, the Ravens defense is totally in play. And
look, I'm willing to get Ravens defense at captain, like big time in this game. Like I don't think that's like a hot take at all. I just feel like the Ravens defense is going to be slightly underowned simply because recency bias points to, the Patriots maybe aren't as bad as we thought. They are. They are not a good team. They played the Jets. Don't look at the box score. Like, they're not that good of a team. Yeah, they scored, 30 points last week? They're not going to score 30 points again. They're going to score 17. They're going to score 14. They're going to score 7. It's not going to be a high-scoring game for the Patriots. And your game scripts, if your game scripts are built around that, I don't see why, getting the Ravens defense in captain at 5% owned, that's a great fucking idea. That's a great idea.
Dude, they had no sacks against the Colts, and they still scored 12 points. They have a fumble recovery in every game this season. Every single game this season. They may give up points, right? But they are a big play defense. They have playmakers. They have guys who are going to strip the ball, recover the ball, and score a touchdown. And that's what you want from a defense and a special teams unit. So I agree with you, man. I think they're in play. And again, if Marlon Humphrey's in, I'm calling. I'm going to call a pick six. I'm going to say it right now. Marlon Humphrey's plays. He's getting a pick six.
All right, so let's move on to our fade of the night. I'm not going to put up our slide because we literally on the fly changed our choices. Ellie, go ahead. Tell the viewers watching and the viewers on the podcast who your fade of the night is.
Well, it's the Patriots, but I guess J.K. Dobbins. I'm going to be fading him pretty hard. I just don't think he's worth paying up for. And then again, Marquise Brown is somebody I'm going to be keeping an eye on. He's not my fade of the night, but he was initially. But, I think J.K. Dobbins is probably going to come up a little bit more in ownership given his price tag and likelihood to get what's projected to be the lion's share of carries. He just doesn't have the output that I want. He's like Jonathan Taylor, except not a starting running back. So
well, J.K. Dobbins just might get game scripted out of this. Think about. Like, I'm not going to put all of my lineups in based on the fact that the Ravens are going to blow out the Patriots. I'm going to have some, Patriots.
Then I'll lose all my money.
Well, I'm going to have some Patriots winning, keeping it close builds. I'm going to spread it out a little bit, but most of my lineups are going to be based around the fact that the Ravens are going to absolutely blow out the Patriots this week. And if that's the case, there's no reason to have J.K. Dobbins anywhere in your lineups unless you think he can get a touchdown in the first quarter. He can get a couple receptions, and it's possible. But me personally, I'd rather go with Gus Edwards at that price. It allows me to get any offense that's captured on the Patriots. That's just how I figure it. So when it comes to my fade of the night, I'm going to go with, me personally, I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers at 9,600. And the reason being is I think recency bias is going to spike his ownership. I think game scripts work out to the fact that, yeah, he's probably going to be targeted and there's going to be garbage time opportunity for him. But in my opinion, I just don't see him getting the ball. I don't see him, like I said, this Ravens defense watches film too. They're going to try to stop him because he was the number one guy last week. I like Damiere Byrd slipping through the cracks and getting some of those targets that Jacoby Myers got last week. So Jacoby Myers is my pick. Ellie, your pick is J.K. Dobbins. I like that. Let's move on to our captain of the night, taking a stand at captain. Last week, Nyheim Hines absolutely crushed it. I'm not gonna take credit for that. I'm just gonna be happy that I hopefully won somebody some money. But this week, I'm going with Mark Andrews. I think he's gonna slip under the radar at his price tag. I think Lamar Jackson and Harbaugh, I think they're gonna plan on getting this guy involved a lot more, especially in the red zone. And this guy has he has deep target opportunity. He's got air yards. I think he scores 2 touchdowns. I think he gets 8 catches, 120 yards. I think he has a hell of a game. And maybe by the third quarter, you might not even need him. I think by that point, he's going to be the optimal captain, and I think he's your guy. So, Ellie, tell me about your taking a stand at captain, Cam Newton.
Yeah, look, I'm going to be honest. This is more of a placeholder taking a stand. I know that's kind of ironic given the fact that it's called taking a stand. But right now, I fully anticipate Lamar Jackson to be just probably close to 30 to 35% owned at the captain spot. If that's not the case and his ownership comes in lower, then I automatically assume Cam Newton will be the beneficiary of that captain exposure. So that means I'll probably stop having Cam Newton as my captain. But right now, that's what my gut is telling me, is that Lamar is going to come in 30 to 35%. And there's really no reason that he shouldn't. He is projected to be the highest scoring on this player on the slate by a decent amount. So that is where ownership is going to go. If that's the case, then I expect Cam Newton to come in sub 10% at captain. Normally, I try to keep it sub 6.5%, really maximum for the captain spot. But if Cam Newton is sub 10% and I'm running a 2-4 with Cam and the captain and one Patriot and then running it back with 4 Ravens, I think that's going to be different enough to kind of compensate for that additional boost that you'll have in the ownership. So again, for right now, until we get a little bit more clear guidance on where we're going to be going with ownership and where the field's going to be playing, I don't think he's a bad play at the captain spot. Now, given some of the discussion that we've had here on the show, I also think that I think it is viable to have Lamar Jackson in a captain if you're taking a stab on DuVernay and Gus Edwards, for example. I think we'll get into that in a second here when we build the lineup. But again, you have to take such risks to be different when you're playing a guy like that, a captain. And if Cam Newton is under 10%, then I think he is a very, very good play. If he starts getting in the 12% and higher, then I'll start progressively cutting back my exposure to him at that position. But I do like your play a lot at Mark Andrews. Honestly, normally I'm the guy to play tight ends at captain on Showdown. I'm sure you guys have seen it. I think I called out Dallas Goedert most of the time, even when he was injured. So, yeah, I love the play, and I will absolutely have Mark Andrews. And just to be clear, when we took this stand, it's taking a stand to a point, right? I did take a stand in about half my lineups and went with my captain the other night, and then I also went with Nyheim Hines with Tyson's captain in about half of my other lineups the other night. Now, It was just barely profitable given the way that things played out. But
Yeah.
being profitable is being profitable. So, great call, in your
Well,
captain pick the other night.
it's really sad because I had about 60% Naheem Hines out of 42 lineups, and I still didn't profit. Why? Because my high upside guys like AJ Brown, Tannehill, Henry, I paired those lineups in order to get those guys. That's why I had Naheem Hines in the captain, because he was cheaper. So I could afford to get those guys who I thought for sure were going to go off. Instead, they sucked fucking ass, and I ended up losing money even with 60% Naheem Hines as a captain. That is embarrassing.
And I do want to call something out for those of you who are still here with us an hour and a half into it or whatever. But look, I mean that's the idea. I'd rather have to rely on AJ Brown and Ryan Tannehill to go get me points than to be quite frank, Devin fucking DuVernay, right?
Yeah.
Like so.
Yeah.
What we did was we limited our amount of opportunities to get fucked. Really, we had Naheem Hines. That was the person that we needed to go up. And honestly, I would stick to that strategy pretty much every time we play, which is pretty much the summary of our show almost every night. Is we go for a kind of a middle of the pack guy that we think has the upside, and then we play the other lineups, and we've won money doing it. So, I don't think it was a bad strategy. It just was a shitty outcome last night.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I personally didn't think the Titans were going to lose that game. I thought it was going to be a blowout. And I thought my game script was Naheem Hines, in a blowout, is going to get some garbage time. He's going to get he might get a couple targets in the red zone, which he did, but it was when they were leading. So it's just interesting because you can nail 80% of your lineup and just absolutely bomb on those last two positions. And
I'm going to build a little grid for us because I think I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think this is what we've learned. Good teams playing good teams. The Vegas line doesn't matter. We learned that on Sunday night with Tampa and New Orleans, right? Doesn't fucking matter.
For this year.
Bad team, yeah, bad teams playing bad teams, again, it doesn't matter. And then I think it gets a little deeper into that. Bad offenses playing really good defenses. And then last night you had a pretty good offense playing the number one defense, and that was the difference maker. So, dude, you're right on, man. And I think that stuff plays a lot into it, and we got to be more mindful because I've learned my lesson, dude. I'm not. Some of these teams are better than what they look like, right? The Colts, I mean, they fucked up. Frank Wright fucked up by not having Naheem. Naheem Hines should have had a third touchdown. He should have been on the he should have been in on the red zone drive. He got them there. So I think we need to be a little bit more mindful to some of these other teams. This is not that situation. You have a really good team. Even if they're kind of a bad good team and struggling, and the Ravens, they're still a shitload better than the Patriots. So I don't think this is a situation where we want to go too crazy on building like 2-4s or going the Patriots way. So, dude, I'm right there with you. I think this is going to be. Yeah, let's
build it. Let's get right into it. Let's go. I don't know. Do you want to go 4-2 Baltimore or 5-1 Baltimore? It's up to you.
Okay, so look, dude, I'm gonna do 5-1, and this is probably gonna be a chalky captain. So you guys are all gonna laugh at us right now, but I'm just gonna start with it, and you'll see why. Go ahead and throw Lamar in there, the captain spot.
Well, this is good because look, he's the most popular guy. Most of our viewers are gonna want to plug him in. Let's figure out how to get different with him in. Let's automatically put DuVernay in, right? I mean, you have to.
Yep. Who's the other guy?
Hang on.
Gus.
Let's see. Yeah, I love it. So let's DuVernay, Gus Edwards.
Now let's go Patriots.
All right. So who's our one Patriot?
Cam Newton.
I think we can also play with somebody that's not Cam Newton. Because look, let's talk about this for a second. So if we're building this lineup, obviously a 5-1 means the Patriots are absolutely getting crushed. Chances are Cam Newton is probably going to score the only touchdown for them. I don't know. What is there? Yes, I agree with putting Cam Newton as the only guy because you're going to capture a lot of those points. But is there any other option if somebody wanted to build a 5-1, is there another option on the Patriots that you could plug in as the 1?
Yeah. So look, guys, you're gonna have to free up your salary here for this slate, especially if you like DuVernay and Edwards. You're gonna need to remove the bottom restriction when it comes to your optimal lineup, because honestly, I love Damiere Byrd at 4,400. I think he's a great spot if you're gonna have your one-off be somebody on the Patriots, and even in that case, I still think Jacoby Myers is a potentially decent one-off.
James White. James White.
Yeah, James White. Yeah, he's a great one-off. And then who the fuck is that kicker? Nick Folk.
Yeah.
Nick Folk is also a decent one-off given a 5-1 stat. So those are all very decent options. And as you'll see,
let's use build, it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's so much salary. Like, there's so much salary by using DuVernay and Edwards that you can literally do whatever you want from here.
Watch this.
And you're gonna
watch this. Ravens defense.
Yeah, 100%, dude. Then swap out Infinite Folk. Do it.
So wait, say that again.
Put Nick Folk in for Cam Newton.
We don't need to, dude. I don't think we need to.
Yeah.
Look,
we got
look.
12,000
Okay,
throw on Marquise Brown.
Okay,
Mark Andrews.
So let's look at this. So okay. I love DuVernay, but maybe you don't need DuVernay. Like in this build, you maybe don't need DuVernay. Because look, if you go Mark Andrews, that leaves you with 5,200. Who could we get at 5,200 that fits this? Another running back? I guess we don't really want. No, we don't need that. Let's see. We want one more Baltimore player at 5,200. Looks like you could throw a Willie Snead in there. You could throw a Justin. Oh, you know what? Justin Tucker. Now this is to me, this is a little extreme. I personally don't like this. I'd rather go 4-2 here. I'd rather go Cam Newton and James White or Burkhead or Damiere Byrd. That's just me personally. I think a majority of the lineups are going to be 3-3 again, but I think 4-2 is going to be a little bit more popular this week. So in this case, Lamar Jackson at the captain, spread out in a 5-1 is probably ideal when it comes to not being duped. But let's really quick. I want to look at doing I want to do a 4-2 here and see if we can get different enough. I think Cam Newton is a good option, but let's make this interesting. If we think it's a blowout, I mean, we could go with James White. And we could also go with, I mean, if you wanted to, you could do this. You can go White and Myers. Now, look, we wanted to fade Myers, but doesn't mean we're not going to have him in any of our lineups. You can go James White and Jacoby Myers, fade Cam Newton. That allows you to be different with the 30% owned Lamar Jackson and the captain. This is just another option here.
These aren't bad builds at all.
No, they're not. Honestly, this is a good build. I'm going to enter this. So.
We need to see ownership projections, because this is kind of crazy. I don't want to get too carried away here, but I do have another one. So undo James White, Ravens, and Jacoby.
Okay.
So throw in Hollywood, DuVernay, and Cam.
Oh yeah, dude, I like that a lot too.
Bro, so if we're looking at these builds, I think the point to take away here is I get it. I get Gus Edwards and DuVernay on this slate, but look at how much salary is left over from this particular build. If you don't like Cam Newton, or even if you don't like Hollywood Brown or even Mark Andrews, you can throw in Damiere Byrd for Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
Or Hollywood Brown. If you don't like Hollywood Brown, you can throw in Jacoby Myers to run back Cam Newton. And again, DuVernay and Gus Edwards being in the same lineup is probably going to be low enough owned that Lamar Jackson at 35% isn't a terrible play. Honestly, I like this lineup too. I might submit a couple of these.
I like it. It's recorded. We have it on the stream, so we can look back at it. Do you want to build another one with Mark Andrews to see what it looks like?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's just get a feel for what it actually looks like here to put Mark Andrews at the captain. Let's see. So Mark Andrews. I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of salary flexibility. You can get pretty much whoever you want this week. So I want to do a 4-2 with Mark Andrews here. So I want to do. Obviously, we've put Lamar. I want to put Cam in. I want to put. So for now, I want to put James White as the other. Actually, you know what? Hang on a second. I'm gonna throw in Bird, dude. Bird at 4,400. So you got Cam Newton,
Yeah.
Demir Bird. I still love Gus Edwards. That leaves us with 8,600 for another Ravens player. And where does that put us here? I mean, you could get a J.K. Dobbins in there if you wanted to go that route. I mean, I personally don't want to play as much J.K. Dobbins, but for this lineup, it actually might work.
Yeah, I'm not upset at that. That's kind of where I landed on this build too. It's not terrible because in this game script, you're expecting Lamar to throw a touchdown pass to maybe 2 touchdowns to Mark Andrews, and then if that's happening, they're going to be running the ball. So who's getting the carries? Dobbins, Edwards, Jackson.
You're capturing.
I don't think it's terrible.
Yeah, you're capturing. So under this lineup, you're telling me that Mark Andrews is going to catch 2 touchdown passes from Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is going to get 100 yards rushing, or even if he gets 60, 70 yards rushing. And then Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins are going to close this bitch out. J.K. Dobbins is going to have a big first half. Gus Edwards is going to have a big second half. Cam Newton is going to have to throw to Demir Bird. And also, look, if Cam Newton comes out and throws to 7, 8 different receivers, you're still capturing those points. I personally feel like Demir Bird at 4,400 can catch a touchdown, can get eight receptions. I like this lineup a lot. I think it's a low dupe possibility even with Lamar and Cam Newton in the lineup. I think because Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins in the same lineup, I think that keeps you low duped.
And here's another thing just swap out Dobbins for the Ravens defense.
Yeah.
That'll there's no rule saying you have to pay up for every single one of these players, right?
And at 3,200, I think leaving 3,200 on the table, that's no problem. I don't even think twice about that. In fact, sometimes that's optimal because most people are going to pay up. They're going to want to fill that salary. J.K. Dobbins has a higher median projection, so why not? I actually like this lineup better.
Right? It doesn't even fucking matter, right? So this has a game script. It has a specific game script, and it doesn't rely on somebody that I'm just not excited about in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I think it's a great lineup. And again, I mean, say you do want to move that salary around. You got 3,200. I know it's not going to get you up to Jacoby Myers, but you might be able to throw a Marquise Brown or something else in there. Again, that's
or you can go up from Demir Bird. You can get another guy on the Patriots. Simple enough.
I mean, it gives you a lot more flexibility. And again, on Showdown slates, you're looking for the highest fantasy output in the best combination possible. You don't give a shit about salary. If you have a lineup full of $200 guys and it takes it down, then fucking do it. Yeah. Right. But I mean, if we had the review of the lineup from last night, there were lineups. It's a 4-2 stack with Blankenship and Tannehill on the Titans, on the Titans, and the rest Colts with Hines captain. Right, it's an important build because it wasn't very chalky, but at the same time, it also wasn't crazy different. Yet it did solo some contests. Yeah. So you don't need to get crazy. Pay attention to the size of the field that you're playing in. Pay attention to the tournament. And if you're playing in 100-man, don't fucking put DuVernay in the captain. Make sure that you're being cognizant of what you're doing and what you're entering. When you're doing 20 max, 150,000 entries, then you might need a little DuVernay at captain.
Yeah.
But adjust and build your strategies and your lineups based on whatever contest you're entering and what you think is going to happen. So I'm drunk, got a little carried away there, so I'm going to hand it back to Tyson so we can wrap this up.
All right,
we're taking a lot of your time.
We're running a little late. We really appreciate it, you guys. Thank you so much. This is a Sunday night Showdown show. And we're terrible at intros. We're terrible at outros. Fuck it. Who cares?
Yeah, what do I do with my hands?
Yeah. So for Saturday, we're going to go live. We're going to keep the show a little bit shorter, but we're going to be interacting with you guys.
We're going to try to.
We're going to do a main slate tomorrow. Anyways, thank you guys so much. Thank you for all your support. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff.
And play us back at 1.5 speed. You don't have to worry about it being an hour and a half.
Hey, look, I'm going to take the time to go through and do all the chapter markers, so feel free to use that. Jump around, figure out what you got to do. But overall speaking, hour and 40 minutes, hey, not bad. A lot of good information here. We'll see you guys tomorrow, Saturday night or Saturday afternoon. We'll let you know in the morning on our Twitter. Follow us on the Twitter. We have a free Discord. See you guys later.